Commander Hyunwoo felt uneasy as he studied the human warship. Something about the situation was wrong. This alien vessel was too calm, too confident. Most ships would show some sign of worry when confronted by a Vulcan cruiser. This one just waited, so young, he said. Send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we have made contact with an unknown species. Request immediate backup. Yes, Commander. Sending now. Hyunwoo knew that 2 more Vulcan cruisers were patrolling nearby systems. Captain Sunmi commanded the Crystal Dawn, and Captain Junho led the Starpiercer. Both were experienced officers with proven battle records. How long until they arrive? He asked Jin. Approximately 1 hour at maximum speed, she replied. On the human ship, Communications Officer Yu Jin detected the Vulcan transmission immediately. Captain, she reported to Dayun, the aliens just sent a message to what appears to be their fleet command. They are calling for reinforcements. Captain Dayun nodded calmly. She had expected this. How many ships? The transmission suggests 2 additional vessels, similar size to this one. Understood. Warship, go to yellow alert. All departments prepare for possible combat. Throughout the Indomitable, alarm lights began flashing yellow. The crew moved to battle stations with practiced efficiency. Gun turrets came online. Missile tubes loaded. The ship's massive main cannon began its power-up sequence. But Diane hoped it would not come to shooting. Her orders were clear. Avoid conflict if possible, but defend human interests if necessary. 57 minutes later, space near the asteroid field lit up with energy discharges. 2 Vulcan cruisers dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their crystal hulls glowed with power as their weapon systems charged. Commander Hyunwoo felt much better now. 3 Vulcan ships against 1 unknown alien vessel. The odds were clearly in their favor. This is Commander Hyunwoo of the Vulcan Confederation. He broadcast on all frequencies. You are in our territorial space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Captain Sunmi's voice came over the comm system from the Crystal Dawn. Hyunwoo, what exactly are we dealing with here? Unknown species, he replied. Their ship is heavily armed but seems to be alone. We should be able to handle this easily. Captain Junho added his opinion from the Starpiercer. That is one ugly ship. Look at all those gun turrets. Whoever built it has no sense of beauty. The 3 Vulcan ships moved into attack formation. Their crystal hulls pulsed with energy as their plasma weapons reached full charge. It was an impressive display of power that had made countless enemies surrender without a fight. Captain Dayun watched the alien ships position themselves around her vessel. She opened a communication channel. Vulcan commanders, she said in their language. Her pronunciation was perfect thanks to months of study. I am Captain Dayun of the United Nations Space Command ship Indomitable. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. Please stand down your weapons. The fact that she could speak their language surprised all 3 Vulcan commanders. This alien species had studied them in advance. You will submit to boarding and inspection, Commander Hyunwoo repeated. This is not negotiable. Dayun's response was calm and professional. I am afraid that is not acceptable. We have committed no hostile acts. We suggest we continue our diplomatic discussions peacefully. You are outnumbered 3 to 1, Captain Sunmi transmitted. Your ship is alone and far from help. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. Dayun looked at her tactical display. The 3 alien ships had spread out to cover all escape routes. Their weapons were fully charged and ready to fire. But she was not worried. Gentlemen, she said into the communication system, you have never seen what human weapons can do. We would prefer to keep it that way. Please reconsider your demand, Captain Junho laughed. Human weapons? Your ship looks primitive compared to our crystal technology. Your metal hull cannot stand against our plasma cannons. I see, Dayun said quietly. She looked at her tactical officer. Warship, select target asteroid 77 Alpha. Range approximately 15,000 kilometers. Load Mach Gun 1 with standard tungsten penetrator. Tungsten round loaded and ready, Captain. You have one more chance. Dayun transmitted to the Vulcan ships. Stand down and let us continue our peaceful mission. Commander Hyunwoo had heard enough. All ships prepare to fire. Target their weapon systems. We will disable them and force a boarding. But before he could give the firing order, Dayun's voice came over the comm again. Very well. Since you insist on a demonstration of human military technology, we will provide one. Please observe asteroid 77 Alpha. The Vulcans looked at their tactical displays. The asteroid she mentioned was a large rock about 1 kilometer wide. It was made of solid iron and stone, typical of asteroids in this field. Fire, Dayun ordered quietly. The Indomitable's main magnetic accelerator cannon fired with no visible beam or energy discharge. There was just a brief magnetic pulse that the Velkin sensors barely detected. 3 seconds later, Asteroid 77 Alpha simply ceased to exist. The tungsten slug, accelerated to 30 kilometers per second, hit the asteroid with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The iron and stone were instantly vaporized. Where there had been a solid kilometer-wide rock, there was now only expanding gas and dust. On the bridge of the star's edge, every Velkin officer stared in absolute silence at their displays. The asteroid had not been cut or melted or broken apart. It had been completely erased from existence by the stars, whispered Navigator Jinne. What kind of weapon does that? Weapons Officer Taemin was frantically checking his instruments. Commander, I detected no energy beam, no plasma discharge, nothing. Just a brief magnetic pulse and then destruction. Captain Sunmi's voice came over the comm, shaken. Hyunwoo, did you see that? I saw it, he replied, but he could barely speak. Captain Junho was equally stunned. That was not energy weapons. That was something else entirely. Captain Da-eun's voice returned to the communication channel. She sounded as calm as ever. That was a standard kinetic penetrator fired at roughly 30% of maximum velocity. The asteroid was struck by a tungsten slug weighing 3 tons and traveling at 30 kilometers per second. Kinetic energy, approximately 450 billion joules. She paused to let that information sink in. Our ship carries 48 such rounds for the main gun. We also have 1,200 smaller railgun rounds and 3,000 missiles with various warheads. Would you still like to proceed with boarding actions? The 3 Velkin ships hung motionless in space. Their commanders had spent their entire careers believing that energy weapons were the ultimate expression of military power. Precise, clean, and civilized. What they had just witnessed was not civilized. It was brutal, overwhelming, and terrifyingly effective. Commander Hyunwoo realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare had just become obsolete. The 3 Velkin ships floated in stunned silence after witnessing the complete destruction of the asteroid. Commander Hyunwoo stared at the empty space where a kilometer-wide rock had existed moments before. His hands gripped the arms of his command chair so tightly his knuckles were white. Commander, So-young said in a shaky voice, I am detecting massive hyperspace signatures approaching our position. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. How many contacts? Multiple ships. Very large ones. They will arrive in approximately 30 seconds. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Da-eun watched her tactical display with satisfaction. The alien ships had not moved since her demonstration. Their weapons were still charged but no longer targeting her vessel. Captain, Communications Officer Yu Jin reported, Admiral Kyung-soo is requesting permission to bring the battle group into formation. Permission granted. Tell the Admiral we have the situation under control, but his presence will help with negotiations. Space around the asteroid field suddenly filled with blinding flashes of light as multiple ships dropped out of hyperspace. The new arrivals were all human vessels, and they dwarfed even the impressive Indomitable. The largest ship was the battleship Seoul's Fury, commanded by Admiral Kyung-soo. It was over 1,200 meters long and bristled with weapons that made the cruiser's armament look small. Its armor was thicker, its guns were bigger, and its very presence radiated overwhelming military power. Flanking the battleship were 2 destroyers, Busan's Hammer and Daegu's Shield. Though smaller than the cruiser, they were fast and deadly, built for quick strikes and fleet protection. Behind them came the carrier Inchin's Wing. As soon as it arrived, launch bays opened along its hull and squadrons of fighters began streaming out. The small craft moved in perfect formation, their engines leaving trails of blue fire against the darkness of space. Navigator Genie on the Velkin ship could barely speak. Commander, I count 4 capital ships and at least 60 fighter craft. This is not an exploration mission. This is a battle fleet. Weapons Officer Taemin was frantically trying to analyze the new arrivals. The largest ship has weapons I cannot even identify. Some of those gun turrets are bigger than our entire cruiser. Captain Sunmi's voice crackled over the communication system from the Crystal Dawn. Hyunwoo, we need to retreat immediately. We are completely outmatched. But Commander Hyunwoo found he could not give the order to run. He was frozen in place, overwhelmed by what he was seeing. The human ships moved with perfect coordination. Every weapon system was online. Every fighter patrol followed precise patterns. This was not just superior firepower. This was superior military doctrine. Captain Jun-ho from the Star Piercer was equally paralyzed. Look at their formation. Look at how they position their ships. These beings have been fighting wars for a very long time. On the battleship Seoul's Fury, Admiral Kyung-soo studied the tactical situation from his command bridge. He was older than Captain Da-eun, with gray hair and scars from many battles. His uniform was simple but perfectly maintained. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the alien vessels appear to be in a state of shock. Their weapons are powered but not targeting any of our ships." "Good." Captain Da-eun handled the first contact well. "Communications open a channel to the alien commanders." The Admiral's voice reached all three Vulcan ships simultaneously. When he spoke, his tone was calm but carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am Admiral Kyung-soo of the United Nations Space Command. I understand there has been some confusion about our presence in this system. Let me clarify the situation for you." Commander Hyunwoo tried to respond but found his voice had failed. "Him. Your species appears to be technologically advanced and militarily capable," the Admiral continued. "We respect that. We have no desire for conflict with you or anyone else. We came here in peace and we prefer to leave the same way." He paused, letting his words sink in. "However, I want to make something very clear. What you just witnessed was a demonstration of our most basic kinetic weapon fired at reduced power. The battleship Seoul's Fury carries weapons that make that look like a child's toy." Admiral Kyung-soo gestured to his tactical officer, who began transmitting detailed information about the human battle group. The Seoul's Fury is armed with plasma lance batteries, fusion missiles, and a spinal-mounted particle beam cannon. The destroyers carry railguns, torpedo tubes, and point defense systems. The carrier holds 120 fighter craft, each capable of independent operation. The information appeared on Vulcan screens throughout their three ships. The technical data was staggering. The human weapons operated on principles the Vulcans barely understood. Some used kinetic energy like the asteroid demonstration. Others used exotic particles or contained fusion reactions. "But Admiral," Weapons Officer Tae-min whispered to Commander Hyunwoo, "look at the crew numbers. Each human ship carried hundreds of personnel. The battleship alone had a crew of 800. The entire battle group contained over 2,000 human military personnel. They do not just have better weapons," Tae-min continued. "They have more people, better organization, and military experience we cannot match." Captain Sun-mi finally found her voice. "Admiral Kyung-soo, we meant no offense. We were simply following standard patrol procedures." "I understand," the Admiral replied, "and we took no offense. But I want to ensure there are no misunderstandings about our capabilities or intentions." On his command, the human fighter squadrons began performing complex maneuvers around the asteroid field. They moved in perfect synchronization, demonstrating tactics and coordination that spoke of endless training and combat experience. "Our species has been fighting wars for thousands of years," Admiral Kyung-soo explained. "We have learned to be very good at it. But we have also learned that peace is preferable to war. We offer you the choice." Commander Hyunwoo finally managed to speak. "What choice?" "Simple. We can be friends, trading partners, and allies. We can share knowledge and explore the galaxy together. Or we can be enemies, and you can test your crystal ships and energy weapons against our battle fleets." The Admiral's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "I should mention that this battle group is one of 47 currently operating in this sector of space. We have been quietly exploring and mapping systems for over a year. We know the locations of your major colonies, your trade routes, and your fleet positions." Captain Jun-ho felt sick. "They have been watching us, studying us, learning our weaknesses." "The choice is yours," Admiral Kyung-soo concluded, "but I recommend you choose carefully, because once that choice is made, there will be no changing it." The Vulcan commanders sat in their crystal ships, surrounded by the most powerful military force they had ever seen. Their entire understanding of their place in the galaxy had been shattered in less than 2 hours. They were no longer the apex predators of space. Something much more dangerous had been quietly moving through their territory, and now it was offering them a chance to survive. Commander Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Vulcan cruiser Star's Edge, watching the stars through the clear crystal viewing dome. His ship was beautiful like all Vulcan vessels. The hull was made from living crystal that grew in perfect curves. Energy flowed through glowing veins that ran along the sides. When the weapons fired, the entire ship would pulse with bright light. The Vulcans had ruled this part of space for 300 years. Their energy weapons could cut through any armor. Their ships were faster than anything else in the galaxy. No enemy had ever beaten them in battle. "Commander," said Navigator Jinne from her station. She was young but skilled, her hands moving over the crystal controls like a musician. "We are approaching the border zone. All systems are working perfectly." Hyunwoo nodded. This was a routine patrol mission. They were checking the space near some disputed worlds. Pirates sometimes tried to hide in the asteroid fields there. The job was boring but important. "Any contacts on sensors?" he asked. Weapons Officer Taemin looked up from his station. He was older than the others, with many battle scars on his hands. "Nothing yet, Commander. Just rocks and empty space." Communications specialist So Young sat at her position near the back of the bridge. She was always listening, always watching for signals from other ships or planets. Her equipment could hear whispers from across the star system. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's energy core. Hyunwoo liked these peaceful moments. Space was vast and beautiful. The Vulcans had learned to travel between stars many centuries ago. They had built a great empire and brought order to dozens of worlds. "Commander," So Young said suddenly. Her voice was sharp. "I am picking up something strange." Hyunwoo walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "There is something big near the third asteroid field. My sensors say it is made of metal, but the readings do not make sense." "Show me," Hyunwoo said. The main viewing screen changed to show a tactical display. Among the floating rocks was a shape that clearly did not belong there. It was long and dark, with straight edges and flat surfaces. No Vulcan ship looked like that. No ship from any known race looked like that. "How big is it?" Hyunwoo asked. Jinai checked her instruments. "About 800 meters long, maybe 100 meters wide. It appears to be drifting without power." Taemin frowned at his weapons display. "I cannot get a clear reading on its construction. The metal is absorbing our scanner beams." "Is it a derelict ship?" Hyunwoo wondered aloud. Sometimes old vessels were found floating in deep space. Their crews long dead, their power systems cold. But this looked different. It looked new. "I do not think so," So Young said. She was adjusting her equipment, trying to learn more. "There are faint energy signatures coming from it." "Very faint, but they are there." Hyunwoo made his decision. "Take us closer." "But carefully." Jinne approached from above. "Taemin, charge the weapons, but do not target them yet." The star's edge moved through space like a glowing fish through dark water. Its crystal hull caught starlight and made it dance in beautiful patterns. The strange ship grew larger on their screens as they approached. "By the stars," Jinne whispered. "Look at that thing." The alien vessel was huge up close. Its hull was dark gray metal covered in strange bumps and shapes. There were no smooth curves like Vulcan ships had. Everything was angular and hard. It looked like it was built for war. "Those bumps on the hull," Taemin said. "I think they might be weapons." "Lots of weapons." Hyunwoo studied the image. The ship had dozens of what looked like gun turrets. Some were small, others were massive. There were also launch tubes that might fire missiles. The entire vessel looked like a floating fortress. "What kind of race builds ships like this?" So Young asked. "I do not know," Hyunwoo admitted. "It is not in any of our databases." "Jinne, are there any markings or symbols we can see?" Jinne enhanced the image. On the side of the ship were strange markings painted in white. The symbols meant nothing to any of them. "The design is so different," Taemin observed. "Vulcan ships are made for speed and grace. This thing looks like it was built to take damage and keep fighting." So Young was still working on her instruments. "Commander, I am detecting very weak power signatures. Life support systems, maybe. And something else. The energy patterns are unlike anything I have seen before." "Could there be a crew aboard?" Hyunwoo asked. "Possible. The life support readings suggest the ship can hold maybe 500 beings." Hyunwoo thought about this. 500 crew members was a lot for a warship. Vulcan cruisers usually had crews of 50 or 60. What kind of species needed so many people to run one ship? "Commander," Jinny said quietly. "Should we report this to Fleet Command?" "Not yet," Hyunwoo decided. "We need to learn more first." So Young tried to contact them. "Use standard diplomatic frequencies, so." Young began broadcasting on multiple channels. She sent mathematical sequences that any intelligent race would recognize. She transmitted basic pictures showing peaceful intent. Her messages went out into space toward the dark ship. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then So Young straightened in her chair. "Commander, I am receiving a response. Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with static. Then came sounds that might have been a voice. The words were unlike anything they had heard before. The language was completely alien. "They are trying to communicate," So Young said excitedly. "The transmission is very controlled. Very professional. Whoever they are, they know what they are doing." Hyunwoo felt a mix of excitement and worry. First contact with a new race was always dangerous. Some species were peaceful. Others were not. "Can you understand any of it?" he asked. "Not yet. But I am recording everything. Maybe our computers can find patterns." As they listened to the alien voices, Hyunwoo noticed something that made him uneasy. The unknown ship was still drifting without main power, but its weapons turrets were slowly turning. They were pointing toward the star's edge. "Taemin," he said quietly. "Are they targeting us?" The weapons officer checked his displays. "I think so, Commander. Those gun turrets are tracking our movement. But I thought the ship had no power." "The main engines are cold," Taemin confirmed. "But the weapon systems seem to be on standby. They can probably fire even without main power." Hyunwoo realized they had found something much more dangerous than a derelict ship. This vessel and its crew were very much alive, and they were ready for trouble. 3 days after the battle, Captain Daeho Kim stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable and looked out at the wreckage floating in space around New Busan. Pieces of destroyed ships drifted slowly past the windows. Some were fragments of beautiful alien crystal hulls. Others were chunks of human armor, plating, and twisted metal. The human battleship looked like it had been through a meat grinder. More than half of its outer armor was gone, revealing the inner structure beneath. Burn marks covered every surface. Emergency patches sealed dozens of hull breaches. But the ship was still alive. Its engines still worked. Its weapons could still fire. Most importantly, its crew had survived. Chief Engineer Tae-Min Lee approached with a damage report in his hands. His uniform was stained with grease and coolant fluid from 3 days of emergency repairs. "Captain," Tae-Min said, "I have the final assessment. We lost 60% of our armor plating and 40% of our secondary weapon systems. Hull integrity is at 75%. We can make it back to Earth, but it will take 6 months to fully repair the ship." Daeho nodded. "And our people?" 237 dead. 412 wounded. The medical bay is still treating the worst cases." Tae-Min replied quietly. 237 crew members would never see their families again. Daeho had written personal letters to each of their relatives, trying to explain how their loved ones had died defending humanity's right to exist among the stars. It was the hardest part of being a captain. "The alien survivors are still requesting permission to leave the system," Tae-Min added. "Sub-Commander Velkar has been very cooperative. He seems genuinely terrified of what might happen if more human ships arrive." "Let them go," Daeho said. "But make sure they understand the message they need to carry back to their Galactic Council." Far from the battlefield, in the great crystal chambers of the Galactic Council, an emergency session was taking place. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to hear Sub-Commander Velkar's report about the human encounter. The young alien officer stood before the assembled council members, his voice shaking as he described the battle. "Honored representatives, we have made a terrible mistake. The humans do not fight as we believed they would. They do not follow any rules of civilized warfare." Admiral Krikstal, who had survived the destruction of his fleet by evacuating to another ship, interrupted. "Sub-Commander, you are allowing emotion to cloud your judgment. The humans simply used more primitive but effective weapons than we expected. We can adjust our tactics accordingly." "No, Admiral," Velkar replied firmly. "You do not understand. The humans did not just use different weapons. They used a completely different philosophy of war. When their ships were damaged, they fought harder. When their people were dying, they became more dangerous. When faced with certain death, they chose to ram our vessels rather than surrender." The council chamber filled with the sounds of various species expressing shock and disbelief. The idea of deliberately sacrificing lives to achieve victory was foreign to most civilized races. Counselor Vekmar of the Spiral Confederacy raised a tentacle. "Surely you exaggerate, Sub-Commander. No species would waste lives so carelessly." Velkar activated a holographic display that showed recordings from the battle. The council members watched in horror as the human destroyer Retribution accelerated toward the alien flagship, its crew choosing death over retreat. 300 humans died in that ramming attack, Velkar explained. But they destroyed our command ship and broke our fleet coordination. To them it was an acceptable trade. Barbarians, muttered Commander Yultan. They fight like wild animals. No, Velkar said quietly. They fight like a species that has survived countless wars on their home planet. Every human conflict has taught them that victory requires sacrifice. They are willing to pay any price to protect what they consider theirs. The chief arbiter called for order as the chamber erupted in debate. Sub-Commander Velkar, what is your assessment of human military capabilities? Honored arbiter, the humans are individually inferior to us in technology and ship design. But their willingness to accept casualties makes them extremely dangerous opponents. They do not retreat when damaged. They do not surrender when outnumbered. They fight until they win or until they are all dead. And their fleet strength? Asked the chief arbiter. Unknown but growing rapidly. During our withdrawal, we detected at least 40 more human ships approaching the battle zone. Their Admiral Ji-Sung Park appeared to have access to significant reinforcements. On Earth, Admiral Ji-Sung Park was reviewing the battle reports in her office at Fleet Headquarters. The cost of victory had been high. 7 human ships destroyed, over 1,000 crew members dead, and 3 colonies damaged by the fighting. But the message had been sent clearly to the galaxy. Her aide, Commander Kyungsoo Jang, entered with the latest intelligence reports. Admiral, our deep space sensors are detecting increased alien fleet movements throughout the local sector. It appears the Galactic Council is repositioning their forces. Defensively or offensively? Admiral Park asked. Difficult to determine, but their formations suggest defensive positioning. They appear to be consolidating around their core worlds rather than preparing for another attack. Admiral Park allowed herself a small smile. Good. Perhaps they learned something from Captain Kim's demonstration. Admiral, there is one more thing, Commander Jang added. The Galactic Council has sent a diplomatic communication. They are requesting formal negotiations to establish peaceful relations with humanity. After they tried to drive us from our colonies, Admiral Park raised an eyebrow. How generous of them. Should we accept their offer of negotiations? Admiral Park considered the question carefully. Humanity was still vastly outnumbered in the galaxy. There were hundreds of alien species and thousands of worlds under Galactic Council control. But the aliens now knew that humans would fight for every inch of space they claimed. Yes, we will negotiate, she decided. But Captain Dae-ho Kim will lead our diplomatic mission. I want the aliens to be reminded every day of what happens when they underestimate us. Back on the Indomitable, Captain Dae-ho received his new orders with mixed feelings. He was being promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's first diplomatic fleet. It was a great honor, but part of him wondered if the aliens had truly learned their lesson. Lieutenant Bo-Ra Park, now promoted to commander, found him on the observation deck looking out at the stars. Admiral, the diplomatic fleet is assembled and ready for departure. 5 battleships, 10 cruisers, and 20 destroyers. Enough firepower to remind the aliens that we negotiate from a position of strength. Good, Dae-ho replied, but I hope we never have to use those weapons again. Do you think the aliens will honor whatever agreement we reach? Bo-Ra asked. Dae-ho looked out at the wreckage still floating around New Busan. Somewhere in that debris were pieces of the destroyer Retribution and the remains of Commander So Young-yoon's crew. They had died to prove that humanity would not be pushed around by anyone. They will honor it as long as they remember what happened here, he said. But if they ever forget, we will have to remind them again. The diplomatic fleet departed for the Galactic Council territories a week later. As they entered hyperspace, Admiral Dae-ho Kim carried with him the hopes of all humanity and the memory of those who had died to secure Earth's place among the stars. The aliens believed they understood war, but they had learned that understanding tactics was not the same as understanding the warrior's heart. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Commander Hyunwoo sat in his command chair, staring at the massive human battleship that filled his viewing screen. The Soul's fury was so large it blocked out the stars behind it. Its hull was covered with weapon turrets that could destroy his entire ship with a single volley. For the first time in his military career, Hyunwoo felt completely helpless. Commander, Navigator Jin-ae said quietly, "What do we do?" Hyunwoo did not answer immediately. What could he do? His 3 ships were facing a battle group that could destroy the entire Velkan fleet. The humans had been watching his people for over a year, learning their secrets, mapping their territories. "So Young," he said finally, "send a message to Admiral Kyungsoo. Tell him we accept his offer of peaceful relations." "Yes, Commander." Captain Sunmi's voice came over the communication system from the Crystal Dawn. "Hyun-woo, are you sure about this? We should at least consult with Fleet Command first." "And tell them what?" Hyun-woo replied. "That we found a species that makes our entire military obsolete. That they have 47 battle groups like this one spread across our territory." Captain Jun-ho from the Star Piercer was equally troubled. "The High Council will not believe this. They think the Velkans are the strongest military force in the galaxy. They will believe it when they see the recordings," Hyun-woo said grimly. On the human battleship, Admiral Kyungsoo received the Velkan surrender with satisfaction, but no surprise. He had studied these aliens for months. They were proud but not stupid. When faced with overwhelming force, they would choose survival over suicide. "Very good," he transmitted back. "Captain Daeun will provide you with basic translation protocols and contact information for our diplomatic corps. We look forward to peaceful relations between our species." But the Admiral was not finished. He had one more demonstration to make. "However, before we part ways, I want to show you something that will help you understand your new situation." Admiral Kyungsoo nodded to his navigation officer. "Display our current deployment map." The human ships began transmitting detailed star charts to the Velkan vessels. The maps showed the positions of human battle groups throughout what the Velkans considered their own territory. Commander Hyun-woo stared at the display in growing horror. Red dots marked human fleet positions in dozens of star systems. They were everywhere, behind Velkan lines near major colonies along important trade routes by the stars, whispered Weapons Officer Taemin. "They are already here. They have been here for months." "This is impossible," Jin-ae said. "Our sensor networks would have detected them." "Your sensor networks are designed to find ships like yours," Admiral Kyungsoo explained. "Crystal hulls and energy signatures. Our ships use different technology. We can remain hidden when we choose to." Captain Sunmi's voice was shaken. "Admiral, how long have you been watching us?" 14 months, came the calm reply. "We identified your species as a potential contact when our deep space probes detected your energy signatures. We spent a year studying your language, your culture, your military capabilities, and your territorial boundaries. The implications were staggering. While the Velkans went about their daily lives thinking they controlled this part of space, human warships had been moving through their territory like ghosts. We know the locations of your shipyards," the Admiral continued. "Your military bases, your trade centers, your colonial worlds. We have detailed maps of your hyperspace routes and patrol schedules." Commander Hyun-woo felt sick. The humans had not just found them. They had completely infiltrated Velkan space and studied them like specimens in a laboratory. "Why?" he asked. "Why go to all this trouble for first contact?" "Because we have learned to be careful," Admiral Kyungsoo replied. "Not all species are peaceful. Some attack first and ask questions later. We prefer to understand potential neighbors before revealing ourselves." Captain Da-eun's voice joined the conversation from the cruiser Indomitable. "Commander Hyun-woo, your species has an impressive military tradition. Your ships are beautiful and your energy weapons are quite advanced, but you have been unchallenged for too long." "What do you mean?" Hyun-woo asked. "You fight like artists," she explained. "Your ships are designed for grace and beauty as much as combat effectiveness. Your tactics emphasize individual skill and honor. These are admirable qualities, but they are not efficient in modern warfare." Weapons Officer Taemin understood what she meant. "We have been fighting pirates and raiders, small groups with inferior technology. We have not faced a real military force in generations." "Exactly," Captain Da-eun confirmed. "We humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Wars between planets, between star systems, between entire colonial regions. We have learned to build ships for one purpose: winning battles as quickly and decisively as possible." Admiral Kyungsoo took over the explanation. "Every human ship is designed to fight outnumbered and win. Every weapon system is built for maximum destructive effect. Every tactical doctrine is tested in actual combat against opponents who are trying their best to kill us." The human fighter squadrons began returning to their carrier, moving in precise formations that demonstrated their pilot skill and training. "Your crystal ships are beautiful. the Admiral continued. But beauty does not win wars. Function wins wars. Overwhelming firepower wins wars. Superior numbers and better logistics win wars. Commander Hyunwoo watched the human ships preparing to depart. What happens now? Now you return to your people and tell them what you have learned, Admiral Kyung-soo replied. You explain that the galaxy has changed. That humanity is here and we are not going away. Will there be more contact? Of course. We will establish formal diplomatic relations within the next few months. There will be cultural exchanges, trade agreements, and technological cooperation. Your species has much to offer. Captain Da-yoon added her own thoughts. But understand this, Commander. The age of Velkan dominance in this sector is over. Not because we wish to conquer you, but because the balance of power has shifted. You must adapt to this new reality. The human battle group began forming up for departure. The massive battleship Sol's Fury slowly turned away from the asteroid field, its engines building power for the jump to hyperspace. We are leaving now, Admiral Kyung-soo announced, but we are not leaving this sector. Human ships will continue to patrol these systems. Some will be visible, others will not. We will be watching and learning as we always do. One by one, the human ships vanished in flashes of hyperspace energy. First, the fighters returned to their carrier. Then the destroyers jumped away, followed by the carrier itself. Finally, the great battleship disappeared, leaving only the cruiser Indomitable. Captain Da-yoon had one final message for the Velkan commanders. Gentlemen, this has been a productive first contact. I am transmitting our diplomatic frequency and contact protocols. I suggest you use them soon. Because ready or not, humanity has arrived in your part of the galaxy. The Indomitable jumped to hyperspace, leaving the 3 Velkan ships alone among the asteroids. Commander Hyunwoo stared at the empty space where the human fleet had been. His crew looked to him for orders, but he had none to give. Everything had changed in the space of a few hours. The Velkans were no longer the masters of their own territory. They were just another species sharing space with something far more powerful and dangerous than they had ever imagined. And there was nothing they could do about it except adapt or die.